Уважаемые дамы и господа, ladies and gentlemen, товарищи и товарки, уважаемые наши коллеги и посетители нашего заседания. Считаю возможным объявить заседание нашего диссертационного совета открытым. Диссертационное заседание посвящено защите диссертации Xiao, гражданина КНР, на соискание ученой степени кандидата экономических наук по специальности 080013. Математические и инструментальные методы экономики. Диссертация написана на тему «Факторный анализ влияния уровня развития региона, математические модели». И это утверждено все приказом Санкт-Петербургского государственного университета. Председателем совета, опять-таки приказом ректора нашего университета, утвержден я. Еще хочу представить наших коллег. Поскольку ближе ко мне сидит Кудрявцев, я его поздравляю, Андрей Алексеевич, доктор экономических наук, доцент, профессор кафедры управления рисками страхования СПбГУ. Вот. Дальше Исин Мирам Естаевич, доктор педагогических наук, кандидат физико-математических наук, профессор кафедры высшей математики Евразийского и национального университета имени Гумилева, Казахстан. Затем Айвазян Сергей Артемьевич, доктор физико-математических наук, профессор, заслуженный деятель науки Российской Федерации, заместитель директора по научной работе Центрального экономико-математического института РАН, город Москва. Вот. Сначала хотелось бы отметить, что согласно федеральному закону от 23.08.96 года о науке государственной научно-технической политике, наш Санкт-Петербургский университет получил право самостоятельно присуждать ученые степени. Соответствующий приказ о присуждении ученых степеней, на основании которого мы проводим наше заседание, был издан 1 сентября 2016 года. Далее, в соответствии с данным приказом, заседание диссертационного совета считается правомочным, если в работе принимает участие не менее 2/3 от утвержденного состава. У нас все присутствуют, все 5 утвержденные. Сергей Артемьевич Айвазян, которого я забыл представить, доктор физико-математических наук, профессор. Вот. Он виртуально с нами присутствует, поэтому мы все считаемся в сборе. Согласно данным мне полномоченно, устанавливаю следующий регламент сегодняшнего заседания. Предупреждаю, уважаемые товарищи, что не более 2 часов наше заседание должно уладиться. Это не значит, что мы должны прерывать друг друга на каждый момент. Просто постарайтесь быть краткими и по существу исключительно. Первый пункт. Краткий доклад председателя об основном содержании представленных соискателями ученых степени документов, их соответствия требованиям. Возможно отвечать 5 минут, если у кого какие возникнут сомнения. Второй доклад соискателя ученой степени, отражающий основные положения его исследования. Ему мы даем целых 15 минут. Вопрос к соискателю строго по его докладу, и не более 2 минут на один вопрос. И на эти вопросы соискатель дает соответствующий ответ. Четвертое. Оглашение председателем, то есть мною, поступивших отзывов, поскольку все эти отзывы были размещены на сайте СПбГУ, поэтому озвучиваются только вопросы и замечания к ним, поэтому тоже...
University website. 3 minutes. Number 5. Reports by all members of the dissertation board. 10 minutes for each speaker. Point 6. Replies by the defendant. 15 minutes. And point 7. Open discussion. So, all speakers, all those who are here in this room, can speak on the defense, ask questions, offer some recommendations. 5 minutes for each speaker. All those who want to speak, please register beforehand in a list and introduce yourself, tell your name and your position where you work. Then the defendant gives his answers to the questions. Point 9. The supervisor speaks on her impressions of the defendant, and then a short break, 3 minutes, and we will vote whether Xiang deserves the PhD in economics or not. At this time, we have no broadcasting online. Point 11, open voting by name, count of votes, and registration of the number of votes and the voting results in the protocol. Point 12, concluding statement by the defendant, 2 minutes. So before we go on according to this schedule, may I remind you to switch off your mobile devices. So I will be the first one to switch mine off. So we have broadcasting. Here we have audio and visual recording, and there is simultaneous interpretation from Russian into English and from English into Russian. Xiang, please, if you do not understand anything, do ask questions. So point 1 is the free report by the president. So the dissertation by Xiang under the title The Factorial Analysis of Influence of a Level of Development on a Social and Economic Infrastructure on Quality of Life of the Population of Region Mathematical Models has been accepted for defense under the decree of the Dissertation Committee, and the members of the Dissertation Committee were approved. The defendant submitted the following documents: application to Rector Kropachev. Second, report by the research supervisor, honorary scientist of Russia, head of the Management and Economic and Mathematical Modeling Department of Ivanovsky Technical University, Professor Ivchenko. Third, recommendation for defense of the dissertation by Xiang under the indicated title, submitted by Ivanovsky Chemistry and Technology University. List of publications, 11 publications reflecting the key results, including 4 publications published in peer-reviewed journals. Copy of degree certificate issued to Xiang, notarized as required. The certificate was issued in China. 6. Postgraduate studies certificate issued by Ivanovsky Chemistry and Technology University. Next, certificate on successful accomplishment of candidate exams in history and philosophy, economics, foreign language, and instrumental methods in economics. All exams passed successfully with honors. 8. Certificate issued by the PhD Awarding Center in China. Report on the verification and certification of the decree in China. 10. Certificate issued on the fact that the results of the dissertation have been tested in Wuhan Textile University. Next, the dissertation in English and Russian, in paper and in soft copy. The dissertation drafted according to GOST standards. I should note that all the documents are in compliance with Provision 12, Section 3, PhD awarding procedure at St. Petersburg State University. as well as the appendix to the decree. So, I think the introductory word is over. Now, Xiang, please, the floor is yours. You can speak.
Thank you. Now, I make a report on the theme of the dissertation of myself, the factor analysis of influence of level of development of social and economic infrastructure on quality of life of the population of region, mathematical models. Research urgency, the basic concepts. In the world economic science, the hypothesis about dynamic mutual influence of infrastructural investment and quality of life of the population in borders, territory, and industrial agglomeration now was generated. Experimental check of this hypothesis is very complicated because of objective problems of information base of official statistics in developing countries. Therefore, in the economic literature, there are no published results on this problem as a whole. I have allocated an urgency of dissertational research in 4 scientific aspects: political, economical, mathematical, and experimental. Slide 2. The work maintains. Slide 3. Reflects the dissertation name, modeling of an index of a condition of a social and economical infrastructure, modeling of an index of quality of life of the population, and the dependence analysis between them by comparison of indexes and ranking of territories. Because the economical maintenance and structure of the elements entering in SEI and QL is not standard among scientific economists. I show my interpretation SEI and QL. Slide 4. The purpose, problems, and scientific novelty. Purpose, slide 5. The purpose, creation of mathematical and statistical models for formation of integrated indicators of an estimation of quality of life and an infrastructure condition for the purpose of perfection of an investment infrastructure policy of the state. Concrete 10 research problems are on slide 6. The received scientific results or scientific novelty are presented on slide 7. Here, 3 points which are described further in detail are specified. 1. An index of condition SEI. Slide 8. The structural model of an index from these levels of hierarchy is offered by Professor Lichika and Professor Madrin. In 2012, slide 8. At the top level, 2 parts are allocated: the social demographic component and the industrial territory component. Weight factors are unequal, as ITER is more important for a state policy priority. At the bottom level of hierarchy, the choice of concrete indicator is caused by presence of the necessary information in the official statistical data. I analyzed the structure of initial indicators and come to a conclusion. It is necessary to change rationing of indicators with reference to a demographic situation in developing countries. Or in the initial data has rationing per capita. Formulas are presented on slide 9. Results of experimental calculations are on slide 10. In total, it is executed calculations for 2009 to 2012 on all provinces of China, 31 regions. An important conclusion from results in slide 11. Index ID SEI reflects dynamics of development SEI for 4 years, as the sum mastered before infrastructure investment. Two, an index of a standard of living of population. Model ILQ represents a system with 4 levels for aggregation of indicators of official statistics on principles, equal weight at the bottom level, and a priority choice of preference at the top levels. The aggregation structure is shown on slide 13. Here, internal factors characterize the requirements of the population. External factors is the state possibilities on the satisfaction, which is resource scarcity. Formulas for calculation are on slide 14. The choice of weight factors at aggregation of indicators is based on the results of the big sociological research of Professor Zhou Changcheng. Slide 15. Family traditions, way of life, national priorities of people in consumer preferences, the state priorities in realization of measures of social support of the population, and the guaranteeing of social services and considered. The analysis of these scientific results has allowed me to offer the system of weight factors. Slide 16. Modeling calculations on index ILQ are executed for 31 regions of China during 2013 to 2014. One example is the result on slide 17. Here we see how ratings of regions on quality of life and show change of ratings have settled down year by year. Index ILQ mutually coordinates internal factors and external factors. Slide 18. I have made an additional check of the offered theoretical approaches with use of other mathematical methods. I used identical information base for all calculations. If I received identical conclusions, I have the proof of validity of my theoretical models. 2a. Verification of models ILQ by the method of the factor analysis. Slide 19. I used the method of the factor analysis realized in software SPSS for check of adequacy of my model ILQ. Initial indicators identical, but aggregation of indicators is other algorithm. A choice of factor factors, formation of classifying function. Slide 19. The model of the factor analysis as a result of calculation for 2013 to 2014 shows ranking of regions of China on QL, presented on slide 20. The table shows a similar picture of distribution of regions on quality of life that confirms a correctness of practical application of model ILQ developed by also. Slide 21. 2b, check of adequacy of models ID, SEI, and ILQ by the method of the principal component. The method of the principal component model of construction of integrated indicators of quality of life was extended. First of all, in the Russian research, the model is offered by Professor Ivarsson. Generally, this two-level aggregation of initial indicators leads to the unique index, serving by reiteration of classification of multidimensional objects. In the dissertation, ranking of regions of China on the same information base with the method of the principal component has been executed. On slide 23. As a result, we have received close ratings as the model ID, SEI, and ILQ. It is an additional acknowledgement of adequacy of all source models. One of the results is shown on slides 24 and 25. Three, the dependence analysis between development of SEI and standard of QL. Check of the hypothesis reflected in the theme of the dissertation. As a condition of SEI influences on QL, I suggest to execute it by comparison of integrated indexes and ranking of territories in the beginning and in the end of the 5 years period of supervisions. That is 2009 to 2010 and 2003 to 2014. Basic conditions of experimental check of a scientific hypothesis are on slide 26. The general scheme of the comparative analysis is on slide 27. On slides 28 and 29, comparison of ranks of territories on condition of SEI and on level of QL for all 31 regions of China is given. I do a practical conclusion for the state administrative structures which work in sphere of infrastructure investments. What provinces need scale state investments in an infrastructure in the following 5-year period that in the next years to improve quality of life of the population. We see from the table that priority obligations for investments in 2015 to 2020 are provinces Guangxi and Guizhou with the worst rating. Slide 13. Scientific results of research are formulated on slides 31 and 32. It corresponds to the theme of research, the purpose and dissertation specific touches. Applied use of the offered models in long-term planning of infrastructure investments is relevant for the modern social and economic policy of China and other developing countries with a similar situation. Dissertation materials are used in educational process of Wuhan Textile University and the program Applied Mathematics, where I am the regular teacher. In the end, it's the map of China and my hometown, Wuhan City. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So now short questions. Please, all those who want to ask questions, to the defendant. Please, you are welcome to ask your questions. 2 minutes per question. 2 minutes for every question. Professor Kudryavtsev, could you please, in short, clarify what is your personal contribution to this topic? How you personally developed this topic?
In this topic, for myself, I made the work in 3 aspects. First of all, I make the extension of the model IDSEI. And in detail, I corrected the expression mode of the indicators from the per square kilometers to per capita. This can better fit the Chinese economical situation. Secondly, I proposed the model of ILQ. This is about the description of the Chinese people, about the quality of living conditions of Chinese people. And we can get the very fitting result. And thirdly, I made a comparative analysis, and that is the influence of the IDSEI on the ILQ. And we can get a good result and a good. Yes, that's all. Thank you.
More questions? Any more questions, please? Xiang again. To develop the integral index of the IDSEI, you used statistical data over 10 years. A similar period of 10 years was used in the ILQ index. Then you look at the 5 years period and at the statistics for 5 years to find out whether the investment into infrastructure influence and how they influence the quality of life of the population. But in the future, what are your plans to develop this dissertation? How will you develop it in the future?
In the future, I think, for my dissertation, in the future, I should make the additional work. The additional work is about the work of finishing to get more data, more official data in more years, and so that we can make sure the influence of the IDSEI on the ILQ can be more rational. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. More questions, short questions to Xiao again. Well, can I ask a couple of questions? My questions are about the structure of indexes. Please explain the structure of indexes. So there is the industrial component, transport, water consumption index, spiritual resources, mortality, and spiritual requirements satisfaction. So the income of the population, marriages. So how did you come up with such a structure of indexes? Can you explain the structure?
Excuse me, about the ILQ model.
Yes, the second index. And the first IDSER, where you say about the industrial component. Well, in Russian economics, we usually calculate it differently.
I'm sorry. It's about the ILQ model or the IDSER model. I'm sorry.
It's about two models, yes. My question is about how did you choose the parameters to be included in the structure of every index? What were the principles behind choosing some parameter, whether it is in the index or it is out of the index?
Thank you. Yes, I understand the question. Thank you. For the two models, I think, because it's about the analysis of the economic situation of China. So I developed these two models according to the following principles. First of all, we should consider that these models should fit the Chinese economic situation. And the second is that for the models, we should consider what the Chinese scientists done in the past, and we should refer to these scientists who have done the similar works. So I made a reference to the Chinese ecological scientist Zhou Changcheng. According to his recommendations, I made the ILQ model. And I made the coefficients and the results. And for the IDSI model, it also has the same situation. I modified the model and to fit the Chinese economic situation. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? More questions? Another question. I'm sorry. Your results. The number of the population of regions. Did you consider it? Did you include it? Did it influence anyhow your results? The population of every region, I mean. Did you include the population of every region? Did you consider it in your calculations? And how did it influence the results? The number of people who live in the region, right?
Yes. For the index of the population, in the IDSI model, it contains the index of the population. That is the economical active population. But in the hierarchical model, it doesn't contain the index of the population. Thank you.
Okay, colleagues, I think it is best time to finish questions. We have answers. So let's move over to reports. So now we will read out the reports. So I will be the first speaker, me, Professor Khovanov. Xiang, you can be seated. You can take your seat. So everything is okay with relevance. And the dissertation is indeed new. The results are new. But the method is already described by Professor Ivarsson in 1980s. But it is a modified method. So it is original. It is a new word. So all recommendations are clear. Now my questions. Okay, I'm not going to speak about misprints, that some words are not written correctly. I'm not going to speak about it. First, my first question. The ultimate goal of economic development is to improve life of people. Unfortunately, we cannot improve life of all people. Normally, it is like that. One people start to have better life, others to have a worse life, not a good life, right? So I think you should correct this statement a little bit. Because life will not be very good for all people at a time. Second, you say that you want to look at general theoretical models of economic phenomena. Unfortunately, we know only several models. So I think that this is a very a big goal for you. Third, peaceful development is a trend of today's time, but we do not see any peace today. Look at Syria. There is a war, right? So there is no peace. Number 4, weight coefficients of the second and the first level are identified based on the qualitative expert analysis done by a Chinese scientist, by Zhou Cheng, right? So let's say that the general proportion is 1:2 to 1, right? And so what we see is that we cannot say for sure that it all works. So in 1980s, this was shown very well that we can work only with original information. So we cannot say we can also say the intervals, but we cannot say the weights. So this goes back to the idea of Stevens on how to measure people's ideas. And there are 10,000s of variations. What we have is the ordinary and interval measures. So I think here you should do it better. And my very important question, in your dissertation you usually mix realistic, real data and theoretical data. This is not a bad thing, as Mr. Ivarsson says. When we do verifications, we usually work with two sets of objects. This is a real set of objects and a theoretical, general set of objects. So I would like you to have these theoretical ideas on the general set of objects to be better verified. This is question number 5. In the bibliography, I found only one book published in 2014. All other books and research papers were published before 2014. And lastly, I declare that your dissertation is in compliance with all the requirements. It is new, it is relevant, it is urgent, it is practical. We have no violation of Russian law. And I believe that the dissertation submitted by Xiao again is in compliance with federal law, and it can be awarded the PhD degree in economics. My conclusion is that Xiao can be awarded a PhD degree in economics in the subject 080013, Mathematical and Instrumental Methods in Economics. Okay, thank you. The next speaker is Mr. Kudryavtsev. I'm not going to read out my report. So the dissertation is urgent, it is relevant. The results are verified. The recommendations and results are relevant. They are new and original. And this is what I speak about in my report. I agree with the modification of IDSEI, the ILQ, and the analysis of trends. And now, questions. My questions and some criticism. The most important questions are: I would like to see a better explanation of terminology related to social and economic infrastructure. On page 63, you say that those are some technical tools for public reproduction in social services. So this is an economical parameter. Whereas on page 64, you say that social and economic infrastructure is some events and organizations that create conditions for economic activities and comfort of the population. So this means that this is an economic activity, right? So we should keep in mind that economy looks at industrial relations, and I would like to have this question clarified. So, and my next question is the institutional component in your understanding of infrastructure, right? That's my second question. You do not explain the application of these indices, the IDSEI and ILQ, in planned economics. It is not clear whether the application of these indexes contradicts or not, or agrees with Lenin and Marx ideology of China, with the communist ideology, and then do these approaches, the approaches that you offer, do they agree with the approaches used in planned economics? And what is new, actually, about your approach? Third question, question number 3. I think that you analyze regions, but you do not analyze general aspects of the economy of China. For example, the Yangtze development and the power plants on Yangtze. So each of these examples cannot be attributed to a region. It is not about a region, it is a national project. But these power plants, this railway, high-speed railways, this is not a regional level. This is a national level for all the country. And these projects have changed the infrastructure of China very, very much. So you should be very careful about this, because sometimes you go over the regional level to a national level, but your statistics is for the regions, and you say you use these indicators for regions only, but it is not like that. Question 4. The selection of indicators to include them into these indexes, the parameters, is not very well explained, so this has already been asked to you. You look at several parameters, including drink water consumption, technical water consumption. But you do not discuss how these parameters are related to other parameters. How does consumption of technical water influence the economic development? So, my question is how to choose parameters to be included into these indexes. And this is important if you say that you offer a new approach, a new concept. So, weights and weight coefficients. It is not clear how you choose the weight coefficients. In China, transport is very well developed. So I think you should assess, evaluate the infrastructure, the transport infrastructure better, because China is not on the last place here. And my conclusion. I think that this is a good dissertation. The defendant has demonstrated that he is a professional researcher. The dissertation has been tested at conferences. No violation of federal law of Russia. So the dissertation submitted by Xiao under the title as indicated agrees with the requirements to dissertations in economics and can be awarded a PhD degree in the subject 080013, Mathematical and Instrumental Methods in Economics. Thank you very much, Professor Kudryavtsev. Now, Professor Ivarsson, please, you can speak. I will not read my report. So I will only ask questions. So my first question is that in your dissertation you do not speak about quality of life of the population, but about the quality of the conditions of life of the population. So this is a very important difference, because the quality of life is a subjective parameter, it is a personal parameter, whereas the quality of the conditions of life is the official term. Well, as for aggregated integral indicators, I think that this method is not a mathematical method. It is an expert arithmetical method. Whether there are 2 levels or 3 levels, there are other methods used to calculate integral indicators. For example, the minimum loss in information when going from initial data, initial indicated, to scalar indicators. The logic is unclear in some places. It is good that you look at other methods to construct aggregated indicators. For example, factor analysis, the principle of main components. But this is done to show that your results are verified, so they are not different from the results obtained that you get by using the factor analysis and the main component analysis. But you look at the factor analysis and the main component analysis as some standards to calculate the integral index. So then, why do we need your methods if we have those 2 standards? It will be interesting to look at how you construct the integral indicator and how you compare aggregated integral indicators that you get using your own method and using the factor analysis and the main component analysis. Next question. Question number 4. The main goal of your dissertation has not been realized. As you say, to have a correct analysis, we need to compare rankings of territories by IDSEI and ILQ models for different years with a lag of 5 to 10 years. But there are problems with reliable statistical data for long-term period. So this is written in your dissertation on page 172. And my last question, it would be interesting to use the distributed lag models in analyzing the influence of the social and economic development of infrastructure on the quality of the conditions of the population. But overall, I said that this dissertation is a very big work, and the conclusions, the results are good. And So I say that the dissertation by Xiao under the title The Factorial Analysis of Influence of a Level of Development of a Social and Economic Infrastructure on Quality of Life of the Population of a Region, Mathematical Models, agrees with the main requirements to dissertations according to a relevant degree by St. Petersburg State University, and Xiao deserves to be awarded a PhD degree in economics in the subject 080013 Mathematical and Instrumental Models in Economics. So our next speaker is Mr. Tihomirov. Distinguished members of the committee, distinguished defendant Xiao Gan, I would like to speak about two contradictory results. I like the analysis of IDSEI and the modification of this indicator, the attempt to identify indexes, to offer a solution by comparing the sets and to verify the results by using other methods. I think that the dissertation is successful. Criticism, so negative things, those are the following. Well, the results related to the assessment of IDSEI and ILQ indexes are sometimes unusual for Russian economics. For example, we see the spiritual component in ILQ. This is something unusual for us. We do not use this in Russian economical theory. We normally use income, marriages, employment. So there are clear parameters included into ILQ for Russian context. So you could use it. So I think you did not find such parameters in China, so you chose the parameters of your own. Next question. The expert opinion on indexes. It is unusual as well, because there are MAI method that allow us to identify these weights. Well, other questions are, there are formulas that repeat several times. Sometimes there are too many words when you describe classical methods of regressive analysis, for example. So, but my result is that this dissertation is a good one, and it agrees with the requirements for dissertations in economics explained in the decree on PhD award procedure in St. Petersburg State Universities. So I say that Xiao deserves to be awarded a PhD degree. Mr. Isin, now the floor is yours. Professor Isin, please. Distinguished colleagues, I will be very short. So my report is submitted on the dissertation by Xiao, the factorial analysis of influence of a level of development of a social and economic infrastructure on quality of life of the population of region, mathematical models. I'm not going to speak about details. There are new results. They are put in words, and I'm not going to say this again. I should say that the Xiang has done very great work. The IDSEI index was previously introduced by Professor Ivarsson, and this index was modified by Xiang so as to make it fit the Chinese context. So ILQ is an original invention of Xiang. This ILQ model is based on initial indicators, and it is a tool to rank regions by the quality of life of their population. So by comparing the social and economic infrastructure development and the ILQ with a lag of 3 to 5 years, we can see how the development of the infrastructure influences the quality of the population. The goal is to establish integral indices to have some official assessment of the quality of life of the population and their requirements in social and economic infrastructure. This allows us to have some analytical tools to plan investment into infrastructure and to enhance, to improve the quality of life. So the dissertation has done all its goals. Its results were tested at conferences in Russia and in China. The dissertation is practically and theoretically relevant. Its results can be used as analytical tools to rank territories and to establish investment plans in infrastructure. The practical relevance of the dissertation is that the results on the distribution of resources can balance the quality of life across China. My key questions. There are some misprints in the text. I'm not going to focus on them. My question number 2. On page 113, you say, Xiang, when we processed the information, we had no data for Inner Mongolia, Jilin, and Yunnan. We decided not to include the data for these provinces in our IDSEI calculations. Initial data for calculations are in Table 2, Table 3, Table 4, and Table 5 of the appendix. In Table 3.10, we have calculations for 28 regions out of 31. But what we see on page 114 is that all the data for all 31 regions are reflected in the table. So where did you get the data for Inner Mongolia, Jilin, and Yunnan? Question number 3. When you calculate the integral index of IDSEI, page 153, you do not have the values for the third block integral index. For block 1, for variables x1, x3, x4, x7. It is not clear how the first block integral index, the second block integral index, the third block integral index is translated into the total integral index to assess the social and economic infrastructure. My conclusion: the dissertation is a finished and a solid work. It is a new word and instrumental methods in economics the dissertation submitted by Xiao on the topic the factorial analysis of influence of a level of development of a social and economic infrastructure on quality of life of the population of region, mathematic models, is in agreement with the key requirements under the PhD awarding procedure in St. Petersburg State University. And Xiao deserves to be awarded a PhD degree in economics in the subject 080013, Mathematical and Instrumental Methods in Economics. Thank you very much for your attention. So we have two external reviews. So authors of these reviews are not here with us, and I'm going to read these reviews out. The first review was submitted by Mr. Abramyan, Yerevan State University, State of Management and Business professor. So the dissertation is relevant. So everything is fine with infrastructural projects. So everything is okay with the relevance of the dissertation. Well, IDSEI index. It is suggested in a modified version in the dissertation, as well as the ILQ index to measure the quality of life. So the defendant has analyzed the correlation between these two indexes to identify the amount of investment. Conclusion. The defendant presented the analysis of social and economic situation in the regions of China and used the IDSEI model to study regional imbalances. Differences across regions are presented. The quality of life has already been analyzed across regions, and these results allow the author to develop specific practical recommendations. These results can be used to develop recommendations to ensure efficient investment in infrastructure. The dissertation is in compliance with the requirements of the Higher Dissertation Commission of Russian Federation. Xiao deserves to be awarded a PhD in economics. So I believe that this is a solid report. Right, no questions here. And the last report, the last external report by Mr. Chernov, Professor of Computational Technology and Monitoring System of Vladimirsky State University, by Stoletovs, Doctor of Economic Sciences. Well, first, relevance and urgency of the dissertation and the key results of the dissertation. In investment planning, public authorities should rely on the assessment and the ranking of regions, right? This is indeed how it is, and this proves the fact that the dissertation is urgent. I should note that the objective of the dissertation is highly complicated. There is no unified opinion on whether the social and economic infrastructure indeed influences the quality of life of the population. infrastructural projects are usually criticized for the fact that they generate return on investment very, very lately. So the topic of the dissertation is vast. So every attempt to analyze it is important. The model suggested by Xiang is very important contribution. It is very valuable. I should note that there are some questions for discussion. First, when you calculate the IDSEI index, you rely on the fact that the indexes that are included in the formula have an equal weight. I believe that the index that describes the internal product is more relevant than others. When you calculate the IDSEI index, you calculate them for teachers, university professors, and healthcare workers. However, you should include other factors, and, for example, the presence of leisure infrastructure, sport or fitness centers, some cultural centers as well. Third, the factor models ensure that the factors included in the models are independent. But there is a clear dependence of these factors on the internal product factor. However, these questions do not invalidate the dissertation, and Xiao deserves to be awarded a PhD degree. So now the reports are finished. So what we have: general commentaries by the defendant and the answers of the defendant. So Xiang, could you please answer the questions? Please go to the podium and answer the questions of all the members of the committee, right? And 2 external reports. So you may just be very general, right? You may not follow the order, just as you want, as you feel comfortable.
Thank you. First, the questions of Professor Abeliana. No comments. Second, question of Professor Chelanov. Answer for the first question. The IDSEI integrated index includes a local index of social demographic factors which contains 4 indicators: economical capabilities of the individual, business activity of the enterprise, housing, medical and educational services. All indicators depend on GDP. Therefore, I accept that they are equivalent. Second answer. In contrast to the cultural leisure establishments and sports, the education and health care per capita are more important, are basic, and its data is more easily represented and good from the Government Statistical Bureau. In the ILQ index, I also include indicators of the spiritual needs of the population and the indicators of the provision of spiritual resources. This is the third level of aggregation in the structure of ILQ. Chapter 2, paragraph 2.4. The answer to the three questions. The dependence is only available in the IDSCI index. When calculating the social demographic local index, when answering the previous questions, I already said this. The ILQ model does not include indicators that depend on gross national product. Thank you for your comment. Thirdly, questions of Professor Kudryavtsev. The first answer. I understand the remark from Professor Kudryavtsev. I accept the following content of this economical category, a complex of the various enterprises and the organizations that create necessary conditions for various kinds of economical activities and for comfortable living of people in a certain territory. This economical category constitutes the theoretical basis for the proposed models for the formation of indices and the ranking of territories. The statistical information base of my calculations is also on this economical category. Unfortunately, the twofold procedure of language translation of the thesis text has the potential errors. I offer my apologies. The second answer. China has a planned economy. The main goal of the state's economical policy is to improve the quality of living conditions of the population through large-scale infrastructure investments. Infrastructure investments are included in the strategic plan of the state for 5 to 10 years. The plan should take into account the geography of the quality of life of the population. And the geography of development of the social and economical infrastructure of the Chinese regions. The application of my models makes it possible to show the government the ranking of the regions, that is, to identify priority regions for infrastructure investments. Existing planned procedure cannot provide a comprehensive analysis and an integrated assessment of the priority of regions for investment. It is impossible to compare my model's approach with other methods of integrated analysis. Quality of life and infrastructure in all regions simultaneous. In the scientific literature, there are no similar models. Practical planned procedures do not use the modeling approach. There are three answers. I agree. The analysis SEI of the nationwide level is a very useful complement for my research work. The fourth answer. The water index is represented by the total water consumption per capita from the National Statistical Bureau. The total water consumption per capita is more accurate and to explain the water resource of a certain region. I did not analyze the relationship between the water consumption and other factors. China's natural resources and the largest population are distributed very unequally. Index of per capita can better reflect the level of SEI. The fifth answer. The author has noticed how ecological indicators and transport indicators dominate. In provinces of Tibet and Xinjiang, they really have the best air environment and a rich water resource. And in Shanghai, there are more overflooded people and a small water resource. They also considered that it is connected with imbalanced distributions of natural resources and their population. Thank you for your remark. I will further discuss the justification of the choice of weight indicators in detail in the answer to the remarks of Professor Ivarsson, and Havanov. Firstly, questions of Professor Xiang. The first answer. At first, the data is calculated only in 28 provinces, and the dissertation is corrected to renovate the missing data for the rest 3 provinces. It is a translation mistake. The second answer. These 3 groups are generated and calculated automatically by using the principal component analysis. Also tries to add the group 1 into the regression analysis, but the result is not good. So also delete the value of the group 1, and I didn't make the calculation of a combination into one composite index. Thank you for your comment. The third answer. I agree. Fifthly, the questions of Professor Ivarsson. The first answer. The answer to the first part of the remark, the internal structure of ID, SEI, and hierarchical indices, is based on author's principles, what are consistent with the conclusions of my teachers published in the world scientific literature. Professor Li Qika, Ma Jun, Ivarsson, Zhou Changchen, I give 4 main principles. Firstly, the IDSI index reflects the economical capabilities of the individuals in the region, the business activity of the enterprise, the daily living conditions of people. Secondly, the hierarchical index reflects the United Nations recommendations on the application of minimum standards of quality of life, national history, traditions of household priorities for the quality of life and the family values of the population in developing countries, the priorities of public policies to ensure the living conditions of the population. Thirdly, the initial information should be based on official data of national statistics available for processing by computer means. Fourthly, the number of initial statistical indicators should be minimum in order to reduce the laboriousness of processing information using standard tools. The second part of the comment, this is a recommendation for the further research. I will take this into account in future science work, and I thank you for your advice. The second answer, the importance of initial indicators for inclusion or not in integrated indices is based on results of qualitative expert analysis executed by the Chinese scientists under the guidance of Professor Zhou Changchen. conclusions of the Chinese scientists about dominating consumer preferences and priorities of the state support in the condition of the imbalance of social and economic development completely reflect a modern situation of developing countries. Therefore, I choose weight factors taking into account these researches. Also choose these different indexes due to the comprehensive consideration of the references of the Chinese economists and the Chinese economic situation. The third answer. The methods of aggregating economic indicators for the calculating of integrated indicators are widely reflected in the scientific literature, including in Russia, China, and other countries. Most often used the normalization of the initial indicators and linear convolution with the necessary weight coefficients. For the choice of coefficients, there are three main methods: mass sociological surveys, expert advice, and formal mathematical procedures for ordering indicators. I used the second and third method for my research. Both methods yield close results when ranking regions. The method of sociological surveys is not suitable for my formulation of the problem. I have already talked about the author's principles for the formation of integral indices. The fourth answer. The author agrees with the remark. These are repeated formulas, and the author only wants to give a detailed and non-trivial explanation in the following paragraphs. The fifth answer. I agree. Thanks for your remarks.
Thank you very much. And now our last event. The supervisor, please, the floor is yours. Xiao again, thank you very much. It is all clear. You can take your seat. Thank you very much for answers. Now your supervisor will speak. So we are a little bit out of the time limit, but no problem. Distinguished Chair, distinguished President, distinguished members of the board. So I support my defendant, and I urge the committee to award a PhD degree. The dissertation was first written in Chinese, then it was translated into Russian and in English. Xiang is a teacher of mathematics in Wuhan Textile University. His education is in mathematical statistics. Then he was interested in mathematical economy and its potential in economy management. He is a hardworking and laborious researcher. He studied classical economical theory, the theory of regional economics, the theory of economical and mathematical modeling, political economics of contemporary China, and other neighbor disciplines. The result of these studies is a dissertation that attempts to formalize mathematically and to prove experimentally on real statistical data the relevance of a strategic public investment resources management strategy, how to influence the investment and how to improve the quality of life of people in the region. This dissertation is related to theoretical and practical goals. How to rank regions, how to identify which regions require investment most, and where should we improve the quality of life of the population at the first stage. How to measure the level of the quality of life of the population. How can we use official statistics? Because the official statistics is sometimes very imbalanced. How to assess the influence of the infrastructure on the conditions of life of the population in this region. Today, economists over the globe agree that this task is very complicated and relevant, both in theory and in practice. Even if we use mathematical economics and huge bodies of statistical data. This scientific discussion proved that this dissertation is very urgent, that researchers across the world, both in China and Russia, scientists from different universities from Russia, Kazakhstan, and Armenia are interested in this topic, and all of the members of the committee agreed that this dissertation is valuable, it is good, it has high quality, and it is very relevant and urgent. I believed that all of you were interested to have this dissertation developed further in the future, and we wish that Xiang will develop new results and new findings in mathematical economics that will be practical for China and for other developing countries. Today I have letters from Armenia, Croatia, China, Russia, saying that everyone is interested in this dissertation, and these people from Armenia, Croatia, China will be together with us online. They are looking, they're watching at this defense. Xiao is a laborious researcher. He's very hard-working. He has analyzed over 150 research papers in 5 foreign languages. He analyzed all this information. He is a native Chinese speaker, analyzed research journals and papers in Russian language. I believe that this dissertation is original and it deserves positive evaluation. It is in compliance with the requirements to a PhD dissertation for economic sciences in the subject 080013 Mathematical and Instrumental Methods in Economics, whereas Shan Xiaogan, citizen of China, deserves to be awarded a PhD in economics. I'm, as a research supervisor of Shan Xiaogan, wish Xiang to be always interested in this research field and to come up with new results which will be published extensively in other new coming research papers that will be famous worldwide. I believe that Xiang Xiaogan, as a young researcher, has a huge future. Thank you very much, Professor Ivchenko, for the positive review. So now we have a 5-minute break to discuss the voting procedure. So please, broadcasting should be switched off. Those who are not members of the committee, please leave the room, go out of the room. So I will inform you when we are finished. So is everyone here, right? Everyone is ready? So now we have open voting. Please, Sergey Artemyevich, please. Professor Ivarsson. So I believe that Xiang deserves to be awarded a PhD degree. I'm in favor. Xiang can be awarded a PhD degree. I'm in favor. I'm for Xiang. You can be awarded a PhD degree. Me too. Xiang, you can be awarded a PhD degree. Thank you. So, me, as for myself, I vote in favor as well. I vote positively, as all other members of the dissertation board did. All the 5 members of the committee voted positive. So we support you, Xiang. Good job. Now, Xiang, you can take the floor. You can say your last remark. Xiang, please, your last word. The finishing word.
Thank you. I think today is one of the most important times in my life because I succeeded in making prediction of my dissertation. I should and I want to express my thanks to the people and the organization, including my instructor, the members of the dissertation committee, the secretary, the other scientists and workers, the St. Petersburg University, the Ivarsson State University of Chemistry and Technology, the Wuhan Textile University, and my family. Thank you for all of your work and your help. Thank you.
Thank you, Xiang. So the meeting is over. Please switch off the online broadcasting. The meeting is adjourned.